We've been on an incredible journey across the UK, from London to Cardiff, Bristol to Birmingham, and even Hereford. Having impactful conversations that could change the game for our criminal justice system. This week, we'll unveil the latest updates. Is real reform for the Criminal Cases Review Commission finally on the horizon? We're shining a spotlight on a new campaign launched by Appeal focusing on compensation for miscarriages of justice. Plus, don't miss the latest updates from the Court of Appeal. There's so much to discuss. Grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive into news that truly matters.
Welcome to Spoken Injustice, where we put the criminal justice system in the dock. It's so good to be back in the studio. It honestly feels like ages since we were last here. Now that we're setting back into the swings of things, there is a lot going on behind the scenes. We are currently wrapping up our response to the Law Commission's consultation on appeals reform. In fact, just a quick reminder, submissions are due by the 27th of June 2025, so the clock is ticking. We are also gearing up for our autumn podcast series, Your Voice Matters, and this is where you come in. We are renewing our call for participants who have experienced the justice system in sexual offences cases. Whether you have been involved as a complainer, victim, accused, defendant, or professional, we want to hear from you. Your voice truly does matter, as understanding the real-world challenges is the first step toward meaningful change. If you'd like to share your experience or insights, please get in touch with us via email at admin@spokeninjustice.net. Now, when we sat down to plan this week's video, we quickly realized there were just too many important updates to choose from. So even though we usually save news roundups for the end of the month, we thought it was only right to bring you this special interim news session. Once again, we are kicking things off with the Criminal Cases Review Commission. With so much still up in the air, the CCRC continues to be a major focus, and with some big changes potentially on the horizon, we will be keeping a close eye on how things develop. Let's begin with the Justice Committee report. After the one-off evidence session on the 29th of April 2025, where Ms. Nella and Ms. Pearce, the CCRC Chief Executive and Director of Casework Operations respectively, appeared before the committee, a report was published on the 23rd of May 2025. Its conclusions were strongly critical. The report states, when Karen Nella and Amanda Pearce appeared before us on the 29th of April, we provided them with an opportunity to respond to public criticisms of the leadership's recent performance. The answers provided to the committee did not inspire confidence. In fact, the report reveals that after the session, Chris Webb and Henley Casey wrote to the committee stating that Ms. Neller's partial responses regarding the delayed publication of Mr. Henley Casey's report were misleading. They clarified that the delay wasn't caused by typographical errors or the upcoming election, rather by the CCRC's request for substantial changes to the report's content, which portrayed the organization unfavorably. In response, the Justice Committee concluded this has only served to reinforce the sense that the leadership of the CCRC has continually failed to learn from its mistakes. As a result of our concerns regarding the performance of the CCRC and the unpersuasive evidence Karen Nella provided to the committee, we no longer feel that it is tenable for her to continue as Chief Executive of the CCRC. The report made several recommendations. We selected a few amongst the most pressing. In relation to commissioner, who are the body corporate and make the final decision on referrals to the Court of Appeal, the Justice Committee found that operating without a full quota of commissioners and delays to their recruitment are serious and urgent issues for the CCRC. They added, "We are shocked that negotiations over the fee paid to commissioners took as long as 3 years to resolve, and that a recruitment exercise that appears to have begun in April 2024 will take until the end of 2025 to conclude." The committee concerns extended to the fact that the current terms of appointment for commissioners are not sufficiently attractive to recruit and retain the best possible candidates. Further, a minimum time commitment of 52 days per annum does not seem sufficient. They recommended that the terms of appointment for commissioners be reviewed to enable them to make a greater contribution to the day-to-day running of the CCRC. In relation to the current remote work arrangements, the committee stated, "We struggle to understand how investigative casework, with its complexity and potential for distress, is suitable to be undertaken fully from home, even with the most robust virtual support in place," and urged the interim chair to evaluate its impact on the Commission's efficiency, the quality of casework, and on staff well-being and morale, and recommended that the senior leadership should have a regular presence in the office. They concluded, "In our view, it is imperative that the organisation moves towards a hybrid model to ensure that it operates more effectively." In relation to the CCRC chair, the committee recommended that the chair should have a background in criminal justice, have recognised experience in that field, and above all be absolutely dedicated to the CCRC purpose of identifying miscarriages of justice and upholding its independence. They also concluded that the former chair held multiple executive roles, which gave the perception of a lack of focus and may have contributed to the CCRC failings. Consequently, they recommended that the next permanent chair or interim chair of the CCRC should be dedicated to the organisation above all other duties. They finally remarked that the CCRC has now been without an interim chair for 4 months. This is an unacceptably long period of time for the organisation to be without a chair, particularly following a difficult and turbulent period. It was perhaps this strong criticism that finally led the Ministry of Justice to announce on the 3rd of June 2025 the appointment of Dame Vera Baird DBKC as the interim chair of the CCRC. Her tenure is set to begin on the 9th of June 2025 and conclude on the 8th of December 2026. Her appointment was attributed to her extensive knowledge of the criminal justice system and a strong track record of leadership. While we do not dispute that Dame Vera possesses these qualities and we hold no personal view for or against her, we do have some reservations regarding her suitability for this particular role. She has certainly struck the right tone and expressed sentiments that resonate with many. In an interview with the BBC Radio 4's Today's programme, she described the CCRC as a hugely important organisation for our criminal justice system and voiced criticisms about its current performance. Notably, she remarked that they seem incapable of learning from their mistakes, drawing parallels between the case of Andrew Markinson and that of Victor Nillen. She suggested that applicants should be viewed as customers.
Is the hugely important organisation for our criminal justice system. Miscarriages of justice desolate the lives of the wrongly accused, and they make the public less safe. It is very urgent that I should get on with both of these things.
How much?
I've looked at no fewer over the last decade than 4 inquiries. Justice Committee in 2015, 2019 Lord Garnier with Baroness Stern's own inquiry, obviously the Henley one into Mr. Malkinson, the current Justice one, and all of them show very much the same problems. They seem incapable of learning from their mistakes. They are negative. They don't engage with the applicants. There is often a lack of understanding. They need to be bold. They need to be mission-driven. And none of it seems to apply. Is why I refer to them not learning by their mistakes, not admitting that they're mistakes, really. Of course, she said, we all felt terrible about Malkinson, but Malkinson followed Nealon, which was an almost identical case, which the Court of Appeal overturned the conviction on the same DNA basis, even as the CCRC was looking at an identical case in Malkinson's and failing to refer it. So there is some inability to grasp the level of failure that is going on. I am very perturbed to find that they communicate very little with the applicants. How can one have, as it were, a client that you're driving the agenda for, that you're looking closely at, and not talk to them and not engage with appeal, for instance, in the case of Malkinson? When I've talked to staff, I intend to talk to what one could possibly call their customers.
Although her statements are encouraging, we remain concerned about her long-standing ties within the criminal justice system. Her past roles as a police and victims commissioner may have involved decisions or views that now conflict with the responsibilities of her current position. While true independence should transcend past affiliations, in reality such connections can influence decision-making. Her appointment is likely to raise concerns among a specific group, those who claim to have been falsely accused of rape or sexual assault. Many in this cohort believe their convictions were influenced by public policies and campaigns like Believe the Victim, as well as legal reforms that shifted the balance towards complainants. Dame Vera, during her tenure as Victims Commissioner, actively supported or championed many of these measures. Her findings failed to include the perspectives from those who report being falsely accused, individuals who are among the very people today likely to seek help from the CCRC. For applicants maintaining their innocence, appeals often centre on questioning the complainant's account and presenting evidence such as messages, medical records, or social media activity that was overlooked or excluded at trial. Many argue these omissions stemmed from a prosecutorial culture shaped by advocacy Dame Vera has publicly supported. If these individuals are to be considered customers of the CCRC, as Dame Vera has suggested, a serious question arises. How will she reconcile her past advocacy with the need for impartiality in reviewing claims from those who see her as representing the system they believed failed them? This arguably supports the belief that the role of the CCRC chair require unwavering impartiality and true independence. Someone unencumbered by prior ties to law enforcement, the judiciary, or political institutions. To rebuild trust and ensure thorough scrutiny of potential miscarriages of justice, the Commission should be led by someone who not only possesses strong legal expertise, but is also distinctly removed from the criminal justice system's institutional affiliations. Only through genuine objectivity, free from the influence of past affiliations, can the CCRC function without the risk or even the appearance of bias. In the delicate and complex arena of wrongful convictions, such independence is not just ideal, it is essential for justice to be served. It's undoubtedly a challenging dilemma. And what are your views? Let me know in the comments below. Now, turning to another important issue we are closely monitoring: compensation for miscarriages of justice. In our last update, we highlighted how this topic was debated in the House of Lords. On the 4th of June 2025, it was again raised in the House of Commons when Sir David Davis MP criticised the 2014 legal change that requires applicants to prove their innocence beyond reasonable doubt to qualify for compensation.
Davis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 1999, the Prime Minister produced a book on miscarriage of justice, recommending ways of preventing them or quickly putting them right. But in 2014, people who had been wrongly imprisoned and then exonerated were only allowed compensation if they could prove their innocence beyond reasonable doubt. This ignored the decision of the court exonerating them and actually meant that 93% of people who had been wrongfully imprisoned, often had their lives destroyed, got no compensation whatsoever. This is an institutional miscarriage of justice. Will he instruct the Department of Justice to review this matter and pay personal attention to actually getting this travesty of justice resolved?
Prime Minister.
Well, he raises a really important issue that I'm obviously aware of. It is right that victims of miscarriage can apply for compensation and appropriately do so, and I'll take away what he says and have it looked at.
Sir David Davis' intervention echoed the message of a campaign launched by Appeal on the 3rd of June 2025. Let's hear directly from Appeal about what their campaign is all about.
Campaigning about the compensation scheme for miscarriage of justice victims, which is a brutal scheme because of a test that came in 2014. It was a test that was snuck in to a big act, and there were some people raising a voice about this is going to have a devastating effect.
Now we see the onus on victims of miscarriages of justice to prove that they didn't do what the state is saying that they did. This is obviously manifestly unfair.
They should never have been prosecuted in the first place in these miscarriage of justice cases. So it's completely wrong that the state does not compensate them unless they can discharge a burden that should never have been on them in the first place.
In this country, compensation for victims of miscarriage of justice is incredibly difficult to get. The legal test is almost impossible to meet. If you're looking at it from a cost savings perspective, which I know governments like to do, the amount of money that we're talking about is absolutely minuscule in terms of the MOJ budget. And so what we're calling for is a reform which reverses that position.
There should be no questions about this. You know, you shouldn't have to go through another test or anything else. It's just another insult to what's happened to you at the beginning.
We stand firmly alongside Appeal in their fight for fair compensation for the wrongly convicted, an issue we have highlighted in many of our videos and outlined in our reform proposals from last year, available on our website at spokeninjustice.net. We believe there is strength in unity and fully support their call to eliminate the unfair requirement to prove innocence beyond reasonable doubt. We encourage our community to back this campaign and help spread the word. You will find the link to join the campaign along with the Appeal's powerful video in the description below. And speaking of wrongful convictions, could Colin Campbell, formerly known as Norris, a nurse convicted of killing 4 elderly patients by insulin injections and sentenced to life imprisonment, be the victim of a miscarriage of justice? As noted in our last update, his appeal before Lady Justice McClure, Sir Stephen Irwin and Mr Justice Picken began on 6th of May 2025. Over a 14-day hearing, submissions were presented by both Mr. Campbell's legal team and the Crown. The proceedings concluded on Friday, 6th of June. Due to reporting restrictions, we cannot provide further details at this time. The Court of Appeal has reserved its judgment for a later date, stating that if ancillary matters arise, the parties will be called back. We now await the court's decision. And of course, we can't close without highlighting our participation in the 19 Nurses' first public meeting, which we covered last week. Our focus was on the urgent need for systemic reform regarding expert evidence. Our reform proposal is now available on our website. In my speech delivered on behalf of Spoken Injustice, I began with a challenge inspired by a 2015 experiment conducted by Dr. Freeman, former president of the American Board of Forensic Odontology. Certified dentists were asked to identify bite marks, and even before determining if what they saw was actually a bite mark, there was little agreement among experts. This demonstrated the critical need to restore confidence in the justice system by recognizing that accountability doesn't rest solely with expert witnesses, but with the entire legal framework that governs how their evidence is used. We also emphasized that the key decisions should be made by those with relevant scientific expertise, namely scientists, not judges who cannot be expected to fully grasp complex forensic or medical issues despite their training. This discussion is especially timely following the release of the Westminster Commission on Forensic Science report. Though not strictly forensic, medical, pathological and psychiatric evidence share many similarities with forensic expert opinion, making the Commission's findings highly relevant to medical experts as well. The Westminster Commission aptly described the forensic science sector as caught in a graveyard spiral, hinting at the severity of the issues uncovered. The report also found that a recurring theme throughout the criminal justice system process, from investigation to trial and post-conviction review, is that critical decisions are often made by individuals without scientific expertise. This was a major point in our presentation at the 19 Nurses meeting. Judges lacking a scientific background currently serve as gatekeepers for admitting medical opinions, while juries who are even less equipped must judge their reliability. As our bite mark experiment showed, if even experts struggle to agree, how can we expect judges or juries to make reliable assessments? The report concludes that the foundation of a healthy forensic science sector requires reconfiguration and support, including the creation of a National Forensic Science Institute, NFSI. They envision the NFSI as the central hub for forensic science, collaborating nationally with all stakeholders to co-create a unified forensic science strategy. It will coordinate training and professional development, support specialist services, drive national research and development, and promote greater understanding and valuation of forensic science in society. Society. This national hub will anchor a network of regional forensic academic centres of excellence. Additionally, the NFSI will support defence reviews to ensure equality of arms and maintain access to niche services when needed. The report emphasises that forensic science remain one of our strongest defences against injustice. If we are truly committed to a just society, the forensic science sector must be rescued from its current graveyard spiral, it concluded. This closely aligns with our call for a national body to vet, accredit and guide expert witnesses and scientific methods, issuing standards, maintaining registries and flagging unreliable methodologies and experts. Our proposal, echoing the lines suggested by the Westminster Commission on Forensic Science, call for consistent standards and oversight across all forms of expert testimony. Such alignments not only strengthens the case for reform, but also reinforces a broader commitment to ensure that all expert contributions to the justice system are both reliable and subject to meaningful scrutiny. That wraps up today's interim news session. I hope the topics we covered have struck a chord with you. As always, please share your thoughts and join the conversation in the comments below. As we have seen today, the pursuit of justice demands not only vigilance but bold reform, whether it's ensuring true independence in leadership, securing fair compensation for the wrongly convicted, or overhauling the way expert evidence is evaluated and used. The issues we have discussed aren't isolated. They form a critical web that impacts lives and the integrity of our entire criminal justice system. Now is the time for all of us to raise our voices and demand change. Visit our website, join the campaigns we have highlighted, and hold decision makers accountable. Remember, every step toward reform brings us closer to a system that truly serves fairness and truth, a human system. Thank you for standing with us at Spoken in Justice, and if you have not done so already, do subscribe to our channel to help us in our mission to humanize the criminal justice system. Join us again next time as we sit and rise in this unique trial.